Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Andres, and today I want to talk about two books I've finished reading fairly recently. I have been trying to get back into reading. I started out reading a manga as a primer, and now I am delving into actual like fantasy written fiction. And the first book I read after reading Blood on the Tracks was The Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett. And the reason I picked this book as I guess my first outing into just diving back into like just reading traditional books is because I feel like Terry Pratchett as a human being um, is very similar to what I am. I think I really liked growing up a lot of absurdist and a lot of satirical writing when I was in high school and I read, like I appreciated authors like Kurt Vonnegut specifically. Player piano and such. And yeah, so this just felt like up my alley because I do like a lot of fantasy. And these books I've heard are very satirical, very absurdist. I mean, the setting is absurd as a whole. I guess if you don't know about the Discworld series, in short summary, it takes place not in our, I guess, planet or universe. It takes place on a giant sea turtle called the Great Atween that has on its back, on its shell, four elephants. And on top of those four elephants, there's the Discworld, which is, I guess, a flat Earth. Maybe flat earthers, if you're a flat earther, then I would say, first of all, don't be. But secondly, maybe you'll enjoy these works of fiction. Maybe you'll think it's nonfiction. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, that's the setting of the Discworld books. Um, and the specific novel, The Color of Magic, is the first book in the series. I believe it's Terry Pratchett's first novel. And from what I understand, I think it was originally three kind of short stories or four that he merged into one. And you can definitely feel it in this first one. I will say this first book is not as good as the sequel, in my opinion. You can tell that he's getting up to speed. There's still some funny stuff in this book. There's still a lot of good character work with the main characters, but as a whole, that you can see that it felt more like a kind of Saturday morning cartoon in a lot of ways, and it definitely on the sequel and the Light Fight Fantastic, it still feels like a fairly generic setting, but there's way more humor, banter, puns, and absurdism, I would say, added up. There, I was laughing much more in the second book than in the first one. But this is still definitely worth a read, and I would say it's a required reading to read the second book. But in short summary, the story of the Color of Magic is, as I said, it's kind of like a combination of different stories. Very clearly, it feels pretty disjointed. I think it has literally four chapters, and I would say each chapter is its own story. Um, the basic thing is, as I said, the main character, his name is Rincewind. He's this magician, failed magician that doesn't know any magic. He dropped out of school, but he's a really good talker. He's really good at running away. He does have one spell trapped in his head, which will be more important in the second book. And he is lives in this town in the city called Ankh-Morpork, which is kind of like a very typical medieval fantasy setting where it's kind of grimy, like there's mercenaries, there's magicians, dwarves, trolls, whatever, like corrupt, grimy setting. But he's just hanging out and he ends up, just by coincidence, meeting up with a fellow called Two Flower. Now, Two Flower, he's our second main character, especially in this book. He is a tourist, and he's not like a tourist like he comes from I guess another town close by. He's essentially like they don't the Terry Pratchett doesn't outwardly say it, but in a lot of ways he basically comes from maybe another universe. He says he comes from across the sea, but in my eyes, he more so is supposed to represent like someone like from planet Earth being dropped into the Disc world. He is a tourist. he has this luggage that has little feet that just follows him around, and he's just trying to learn about this fantastical world. He's heard stories about the Discworld, and he's just coming in, and he just wants to have a guide to show him around and to live some of these like fantasies. It's like if you read essentially the Lord of the Rings or any other traditional fantasy, and then you were transported into their world, and we're like, oh, I've heard a lot about you guys, and a lot about your heroes. He like even knows like the heroes, the literal heroes that are known across the Discworld land, and he's just here to take pictures and to take in the scenery and vacation. So and he's also carrying a lot of money, and he basically persuades Rincewind, and Rincewind is also persuaded by the people of the town to show him around. And they get caught up, and hilarity ensues. A recurring theme of the short stories is Rincewind. Two Flower is kind of lives in La La Land. He's like just living in the moment, like wow. Even if he's in like grave danger, he'll be like, oh, I'm having such a great time just seeing these fights going around me and not really being present into damn, I might die if someone like tries to hurt me. And Rincewind is the complete like polar opposite, where he's kind of like always feels like he's in danger. He's always anxious, and he's always trying to figure out how to run away. He's a master at running away. Terry Pratchett as a whole, he does a really good job at giving you a generic setting, as I said, a fairly generic fantasy setting, but giving it a fun, like, comedy spin on it. I could see some of these stories being written as like newspaper comics in some ways, in a good way, I would say, where the writing doesn't take itself too seriously. There's not a lot of consequence, I guess, coming into the second book. So it's as it's good to read, because also there might be other things that are background to that he definitely is working out as he's going while writing this novel, and then writing the second one where he incorporates elements from here onto further books about the Unseen University, about Ankh-Morpork, about the magic. I guess another element is the magic system. I don't know. I mean, but there's a concept of the colors, the color of magic. But the color of magic is what they call octarine. I'm not going to pretend like I fully understand it, but it seems to be kind of like a new color that's unique to them, that is, I guess, purplish, and it's a color that signifies magic. So whenever magic happens, that's what's going on in the world, or in like the environment around it. It'll show that color. And this leads to the second book, The Light Fantastic. And this book, personally, it is much better. It has a cohesive narrative from beginning to end. They add more details to add like stakes to the story rather than just going on bumbling around. And he builds up on a lot of the concepts of the first book, while still remaining really funny, really witty. I would argue even funnier than the first book. The dialogue is hilarious on this book. I was laughing out loud many times. My wife just kept staring at me like I was crazy, because I typically don't laugh while reading, like in the past. But the basic premise of The Light Fantastic is Rincewind and Two Flower, they fall off the edge, and they get saved by the spell, by a spell, the only spell that's trapped in Rincewind's head. That's one of the 8, I guess, strongest spells of the Discworld, and they get saved by it. This triggers essentially the book that contains the other 7 spells, the Octavo, which I guess is just, I mean, it's just 8. I speak Spanish, it just means 8. But that triggers that the book. It causes the like the Magician's Order, who they like the Unseen University, I guess it's called, which is like, I guess, a Harry Potter-esque academy of wizards. They go to where the book is at, and they try to figure out what's going on with the book. And essentially, the book kind of warps reality to make sure that Rincewind stays alive. And then they summon Death, who's a recurring character, for them to because they want to know, like, what the hell is going on? Why is this happening? And Death essentially tells them there's a comet coming in that is looming, and we start seeing as the story goes along, it's getting closer and closer to the Discworld. And this comet's going to crash onto Discworld and destroy it. And the only way to save it is to get these spells back together, the 8 spells from the Octavo, which Rincewind has one of them, right? And the other 7 are in the original book. They have to all come back together. Someone has to say them all, and that will stop the comet from crashing, and it will save all of Discworld. So that's the main plot line. Rincewind is trying to, I mean, by accident, but and then eventually by on purpose, go back to the Octavo and say the 8 spells and save the Discworld and its peoples. And overall, as I said, really great book. The plot line itself, fairly generic. We have the reluctant hero, I guess, trope. And alongside him is Two Flower, who is this idealistic, happy-go-lucky person who is seeing everything in his eyes from a perspective of a tourist. So in some ways, he probably doesn't even really care what's going on. He's just living, the adventure and being happy and taking pictures and stuff along the way. What elevates this book, in my opinion, is the writing, just like the first one. The banter, the comedy, the situations, poking fun of tropes of characters. Like there's a character called Cohen the Barbarian that's like Conan the Barbarian, but instead it's like Conan, but now he's 86 years old and his back is messed up, and he has no teeth and he just eats soup, and he speaks like in a very like muttered word where he's mumbling his words, but he's still the hero, legendary hero. So there's a lot of jokes about that. The writing is great. Terry Pratchett is an amazing author, and if you if you've gone through this whole video and I guess you don't care about spoilers and you made it this far, I would recommend you highly, actually, to check out this series, and to check out these first 2 books. I think for Discworld, a lot of people recommend people to read Small Gods, or I think Mort is another one that they recommend as good entryways. I would say Color of Magic and Light Fantastic are still good because you can see Terry Pratchett's evolution as an author and his improvement. So if you can finish the first one, then you will have no problem coming into the second one. You will breeze through. I breezed through this. I really enjoyed it. And another thing to add is I really love the touches at the end. I love the character of Rincewind and his progression. It's a very typical, as I said, reluctant hero to hero progression, and but there's some cool flourishes, and I guess in the tone and the writing and the dialogue that feels very poignant, and then especially with Two Flower, I appreciated the his journey as well by the end, where I love the lines in the end where he basically says something to the tune of, it's important to have a home to return to bask in your memories, just to have things sink in afterwards. So that gives a lot of perspective, I think, of Two Flower after the fact as a character, where you could take things as, maybe he's bored of his life, because we find out earlier on that he's like an accountant and, he lives a pretty monotone life. And I think by the end he realizes, this journey, it was a great journey. It was a fun journey. It's going to live with him for his entire life, for the rest of it. But it's important also to have a home, a memorable home, and to have people to return to, because, these travels and journeys can't be the only thing keeping you alive. You have to have a safe place to go back to that is nurturing, that makes you happy. And I thought that was a really poignant message. Maybe I'm overstating or over analyzing the end, but that's what I got out of it. And hey, that's what books are about at the end of the day. But if you know, that message kind of stuck with me. So as I said, I definitely recommend you guys to check out The Color of Magic and especially The Light Fantastic. I will definitely keep on reading these novels. But I'll probably take a little break in between, read some other things, and then come back to them. But yeah, if you like this video, let me know in the comments. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And let me know what you think about the Discworld books, if you've read them, and what are your favorite ones. If I were to skip at any point the chronological, or not the chronological, but the release order, which one should I read? Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Bye.